Uncle Yu's legs were sunk deep into the snow. He took one step forward, letting the pirate's bullets shoot at his body, but it was like scratching an itch. Even if the heavy firearms caused some damage, his flesh could quickly recover. "Fatty Sue!" Uncle Yu yelled. Fatty Sue shouted, "Roger that." It wasn't the first time the two of them had teamed up together, and they had long had a mutual understanding of each other. Fatty Sue quickly executed his blizzard ability, forming a huge storm of wind and snow in the direction of the pirates' incoming attack. Although it had little killing power, it was enough to create a huge mess for the other party and interfere with their vision. Uncle Yu, alone, walked out in front of the battle formation. Then, he roared and activated his weapon. As soon as he could, Xing Tian disengaged his full legion ability and poured all his power into Uncle Yu's body. Although it was not the origin bullets that were activated, hot weapons still possessed notable lethality for ordinary pirates and low-level mutants. Not to mention this kind of lethal weaponry. With Fatty Sue's ability, the pirates in the blizzard were like lambs to the slaughter. Their bodies were mercilessly pierced through their bodies by the high-energy bullets, and in the blink of an eye, a large number of pirates were shattered into pieces. Uncle Yu roared with rage, his heart incomparably happy. This particular battle suit was naturally something he had requested Liu Karen to help him create. "Hey mutants, just leave it to me." Uncle Yu could clear out most of the stragglers. However, quite a few of the cadre-level pirates on the other side could be mutants of notable strength. The duo of Xiao Honglian and Xing Tian topped the front line of the battle line with the mutants under their command. Sure enough, not long after, Canuta was extremely furious seeing his men slaughtered. On the main battlefield, the duel between Zhang Yi and Phoenix Ren remained the focus of everyone's attention. Zhang Yi quickly glanced at Uncle Yu's amazing power in battle and couldn't help but smile. No one really had time to pay attention to the battle between Zhang Yi and Phoenix Ren, but they couldn't help but pray for their respective leaders in their hearts. Because the defeat of either Zhang Yi or Phoenix Ren would cause the entire battlefield to tip. This was the ability of top-level mutants to dominate the battlefield. In fact, both Phoenix Ren and Zhang Yi felt a bit faint in their hearts. They could not defeat each other. The key to determining the outcome of the battle lay in whether the Tengu squad would receive reinforcements and in the outcome of the battles of the other team members below. But by now, the battlefield had long since become a mess. Zhang Yi had not expected them to be betrayed, and Eclipse Moon and the Sky Dragon pirates had joined forces to attack them. And on the Eclipse Moon team, because of Zhang Yi's presence, Mayumi Takeuchi's prophetic powers had also been sealed. They could not see clearly the direction the battlefield was taking. Zhang Yi in particular displayed a power beyond everyone's imagination. Both were in the air, and Zhang Yi chose to use two White Eagles to engage in a battle of dodging and weaving with Phoenix Ren. Almost at the same time, the same thought occurred to both of them: if they can't kill each other, they'll kill each other's men. Zhang Yi looked down on the battlefield from above. His gaze fell on Daiko Yen-jin, Tsukamoto Nobunaga, and Canuta, the fourth captain of the Sky Dragon pirates, in the distance. If I use Thunderstrike, it won't be easy to kill them. But if I take advantage of their fierce battle and shoot them in the back, there's a good chance I can kill them. Zhang Yi used origin bullets and holy silver bullets to fire at Daiko Yen-jin, who was fighting by Li Changqing below. But as soon as he did, he felt a sinister gaze looking at Liang Yu and Yang Xinxin. Phoenix Ren suddenly smiled evilly. "The two people who have been by your side the whole time are your women, right?" Zhang Yi's heart flared with anger. No one was allowed to touch anyone from his family. However, he could not show his anger. The more he did so, the more vulnerable they would become, and the more likely it was that Phoenix Ren would target them. Zhang Yi said indifferently, "They're just a few subordinates." "What, do you want to kill them?" He raised the corners of his mouth, and sneered as he glanced in the direction of Mayumi Takeuchi. "How about we kill them in turns? What do you think?" The smile on Phoenix Ren's lips disappeared. Mayumi Takeuchi was not just a teammate to him, she was also the heart of their combat power. "Can you get past Jinguji?" he asked in return. "We'll know if we try." A distorted light slowly emerged in the center of Zhang Yi's right eye. Divine Might could be activated at any time, and if Jinguji Saikiro tried to block it, no one knew what would happen. Even if he could block it, he would pay an extremely high price. Phoenix Ren lowered the brim of his cap to hide his eyes from Zhang Yi. At this moment, he was weighing the pros and cons, whether or not to take a gamble. However, he could not afford to lose. If he lost Mayumi Takeuchi, he would lose everything. He would go from being a top-notch mutant to just another second-rate mutant. That was too high a price to pay, and he didn't dare take it. But in Zhang Yi's heart, an extremely risky and bold plan was slowly taking shape. But he had never been a risk-taker. So he was still waiting for the right moment to present itself. Another battlefield. This was Liang Yu's duel with Tsukamoto Nobunaga. Both are top-notch warriors and masters of the sword. Before they arrived, their swords had already swept through mid-air, with a biting killing chance spreading throughout space. The passing of the sword made heaven and earth lose color. The first time they fought, the two were indistinguishable, no one got any advantage. Nobunaga's sword was faster, but Liang Yu's sword was more vicious. Liang Yu was the first to strike, relying on the strength of her weapon to block Nobunaga's sword. Nobunaga closed his eyes. At this point Liang Yu was already within his domain. Yet what he could see was no one but a narrow tang sword. The selfless realm, truly an expert. Nobunaga cracked the corners of his mouth and laughed even harder, even a little crazy. I've never sparred with a sword master from Huashu Kingdom before. All the martial arts masters I've seen before were all deceivers. To think that I was allowed to meet you here, this is really lucky. Liang Yu's right hand skillfully pulled a sword and slashed out with a backhand. Meeting me is your misfortune. One of them was a martial arts nerd, the other was a martial arts genius who had practiced martial arts since childhood, and both were good with swords, so after they met, the battle was very intense. After the Deng family's scientific cultivation, now Liang Yu's strength had completely reached the vice-captain level. She didn't have any other abilities, she had simply strengthened her 5 senses as well as her physical abilities. On anyone else, it might just be an okay Delta-level powerhouse. But to a martial arts master, this was a huge boost. Sword chi spanned between heaven and earth, the speed of the duo was so fast that they couldn't even clearly see the swords in their hands, nor could they clearly see their person. Only 2 residual shadows, in the sky flying among the snowflakes back and forth. The only thing that could be seen was the surrounding dead trees and rocks being slashed. The cuts were as flat as mirrors. Clang! By the time Nobunaga's stance had run its course, her long sword swung out from the bottom up. An arm was thrown high into the air, bright red blood spilling onto the ground like a blooming plum blossom, only to become dull in an instant. On the vast snow-covered ground, Liang Yu and Nobunaga separated once again. After a near-death struggle, both of them decided to adjust their condition and fight again. Only at this moment, both of their bodies had received considerable injuries. Nobunaga's left arm, on the other hand, was directly sliced off. It looked like Liang Yu had the upper hand, yet it was not the case. Because Nobunaga's left arm was the one that was slashed, his right hand could still hold the sword. However, losing an arm would affect his body's balance. Therefore, when he struck next, his speed would be greatly affected. Martial arts masters fight for life and death with a single move. Victory or defeat and life and death are often decided in a single move. So the duel between the two of them was much more dangerous than that between Bai Li Changqing and Daiko Yanjin. Above the battlefield, there were vicious battles everywhere. Other than the battle between Zhang Yi and their 3 main forces, the fight was even more chaotic elsewhere. The Tengu squad members led by Wu Di and Yi He were responsible for taking care of the outnumbered Sky Dragon pirates and a few members of Eclipse Moon's battle force. Yang Xinxin was riding Flower and was also in the middle of the battle group on this side. Canute's 4th team originally did possess a notable combat power, and his own strength was comparable to that of the vice-captain of the investigation squad. However, due to the fact that he took a shot from Zhang Yi's void sphere head-on, he was seriously injured. thus leading his men, was unable to utilize his abilities when fighting the Tengu squad. Soon, the ordinary stragglers were pretty much cleared out. What was left was only the mutants. The other mutants in the pirate group were fine. There was a big gap compared to the well-trained and well-equipped Tengu squad. But Kanuta himself was extremely strong. He was a rare marine species beast-type ability user with a transformed form of a giant blue shark, and his 15-meter length and over 100,000 tons of weight made him a terrifyingly ferocious weapon in his own right. Coupled with the ability to move in any medium, even in the middle of the snow, he was still able to launch attacks nimbly. Even the members of the Tengu squad were overturned by him. The rest of the hundreds of pirates were skimming the edges, but it was clear that it would be difficult for them to have too much of an impact on the battlefield. On the Tengu squad side, the front was currently being held by Wu Di and Yi Yi. Facing a huge monster like Kanuta that had almost no dead space in its attack and defense, it was difficult for their means of attack to be effective as well. Concentrate your firepower and shoot its weak points. Gills, attack its gills! Kanuta yelled. The hunt, let it begin. He dived above the earth, his huge shark fins intentionally exposing the surface, and the ground rippled like water. Every person standing on the ground could become his prey. The huge shark fin alone brought an unrivaled sense of oppression. If Kanuta hadn't been seriously injured by Zhang Yi earlier, I'm afraid that Kanuta eating them at this moment would be as easy as eating a cupcake. The captain of the Sky Dragon Pirates was indeed not as simple as an ordinary fish. But right now, how exactly should we deal with him? At this moment, Flower was crouched on a very high terrain, its amber eyes quietly staring at everything that was happening below. Among its thick fur, it revealed Yang Xinxin's palm-sized, delicate little face. Yang Xinxin's gaze looked towards the sky, where the battle between Zhang Yi and Phoenix Ren dazzled the eyes. It was difficult for her to join a battle of that level now. And right now, the biggest trouble was Kanuta, who was disguised as a blue shark. Yang Xinxin stroked Flower's head. Flower, take a good look and make sure to capture his movements. Woo! Flower's eyes were dead set on the lower ground. What a big fish! Its eyes went straight. Cats were naturally sensitive to fish, it was just that this fish was slightly bigger. And behind Yang Xinxin, an angel with 3 pairs of feathered wings slowly emerged. Carefully, look for his position. Yang Xinxin muttered. While the angel behind her appeared with a longbow in its left hand, its right hand removed a feather from behind it. That feathered wing transformed into a sharp arrow in its hand, with the end still looking like a feathered wing. After a short while, Kanuta violently drilled out from the depths of the earth and opened its huge mouth, this time targeting Lu Yinghao. Lu Yinghao's face went white. Even though he had injected himself with adrenaline hormones, his speed was not enough to escape Canuta's attack. Arg! Kanuta directly swallowed Lu Yinghao in his stomach. Yang Xinxin's eyes stared, and the bow in the hand of the angel behind her was like a full moon, and she shot it at Canuta's body. Pfft! The arrow shot into Canuta's torso, and then only missed the small half of it. It didn't even manage to penetrate his thick scale armor. Kanuta coldly glanced at Yang Xinxin's direction and then stopped paying attention. One would not want to penetrate past his defenses unless one had a vice-captain level attack ability. He couldn't block Zhang Yi's void sphere, but couldn't he still block the attacks of the rest of the Tengu squad? After Kanuta had devoured Lu Yinghao, he hadn't had the time to utter words to taunt the Tengu squad, when suddenly his eyes looked to one side, and then he opened his big mouth and vomited Lu Yinghao out. Lu Yinghao was covered in mucus and was in a sorry state. But he still quickly stabilized himself and looked at the huge blue shark rather proudly. I'm covered in poison, how dare you eat me? Lu Yinghao, who could control the hormones in his body, could make his bodily fluids turn into deadly toxins. So Canuta's choice to devour him was undoubtedly a huge decision mistake. However, given his huge size, it was obviously not that easy to poison him. Wudi's eyes lit up as he found a way to deal with Kanuta. At the very least, it would allow everyone to avoid being eaten by him. Lu Yinghao, use your poison to give each of us some on our bodies. Lu Winghao shouted, "Understood." He quickly ran to Wu Di's side before biting open his own wrist and drenching his blood onto his body. The blood became a deadly poison after he transformed it. One by one, the others went through the process as well. Kanuta scoffed at this though. If he couldn't swallow it, then he could just crush it with his size advantage.